on Tuesday. Prime Minister Naoto Kan told 130,000 people living between 20 and 30 kilometers from the plant to take shelter indoors.
We need now for everybody to move out of the 20-kilometer radius from the number 1 plant. And in areas from 20 to 30 kilometers from the power plant, depending on what happens at the power plant, we would like to ask you to remain indoors, at home or in your offices.
Chief Cabinet Secretary Yukio Edano says the fire at the number 4 reactor of the Fukushima number 1 plant may have caused the increase in radioactivity around the plant. Edano said the number 4 reactor was not operating when the quake struck and that nuclear fuel does not ignite by itself. He said spent nuclear fuel stored inside the reactor probably got hot and generated hydrogen, which exploded. He said the number 4 reactor is no longer contained by a building and the fire must be put out to stop the release of radioactive materials. And yet another explosion was heard earlier on Tuesday at the number 2 reactor at the Fukushima number 1 nuclear power plant.
At Fukushima number 1 nuclear power plant, number 2 reactor, at 6:14 a.m., there was a blast heard near the separation pool, and the pressure began to fall in the separation pool. We are continuing the water injection into the pressure of those vessels, but the operators who are not directly engaged in this operation are being ordered to be evacuated to safer locations.
The explosion was reported by both the plant operator and the Nuclear and Industrial Safety Agency. They say a sound of blast was heard around the suppression pool, the equipment that coordinates the pressure in the reactor container. The operator says the valve to vent steam and reduce pressure inside the reactor had closed, and they were trying to open it when the explosion occurred. It says it cannot deny the possibility that the fuel rods are melting. The company has been battling to raise the water level in the container vessel to cool the fuel rods. The company said that half of the rods are still exposed. Chief Cabinet Secretary Edano has issued a radiation warning. He says a dangerous level of radioactivity was detected around the crippled reactors on Tuesday morning.
So now we are talking about levels that can impact human health. I would like all of you to embrace this information calmly. But these are readings taken near the area where we believe that the release of radioactive substances is happening. The further away you get from the power plant or reactor, the value should go down.
The readings were taken at 10:22 a.m. Japan time. Edano said 400 millisieverts of radiation was detected around the number 3 reactor. He says this level of radiation is harmful to human health. Experts say exposure to radiation levels of up to 100 millisievert is not harmful to human health. 400 millisievert, the level announced by the Chief Cabinet Secretary, is 4 times that amount regarded as safe. Former Director of Radiation Effects Research Foundation, Shigenobu Nagataki, says exposure to 400 millisieverts for more than 2 hours is equivalent to a dose of more than 1,000 millisieverts. This amount of radiation has immediate effects, causing people to feel sick and burns on the skin. The Chief Cabinet Secretary said 100 millisieverts was detected around the number 4 reactor, and a reading of 30 millisieverts was recorded between the number 2 and number 3 reactors. Earlier, NHK senior commentator Noriyuki Mizuno gave us his analysis of the level of radiation detected and possible health effects.
At the number 1 nuclear power plant in Fukushima, there are some developments, and we would like to report on you what is happening. Now, as for the radiation that is being observed near the nuclear power plant at 1022, at number 3 reactor, near the number 3 reactor, it was 400 millisievert. And Chief Cabinet Secretary Yukio Edano said that this is a different unit from the microsievert that people were using. Now, compared with microsievert, millisievert is 1,000 times of it. So this amount here we're talking about is 400 millisievert. If people had been exposed to 500 millisieverts to all of their body, the white cells temporarily reduce, and in the periphery vessels, the lymphocyte reduces. So that means that the 400 millisievert is very close to 500 millisievert. So this is definitely going to affect human body. But this was observed within the compound of the nuclear power plant. Yes, not in the periphery of the compound, or the border. It is near the third reactor. So the radiation, further you go, the radiation falls. It declines at the inverse square of the distance. So ordinary people will not be exposed to this rate of 400 millisievert. Now, why is this kind of radiation being emitted? And now, serious emission is taking place simultaneously at the power plant. Yes, from the reactor number 2 to reactor number 4, the situation is serious. Particularly, this high radiation of 400 millisievert was found particularly due to the fire that took place near the pool that places the spent nuclear fuel plant near the fourth reactor. Now, it has been announced that the fire has been put off, but it is very important to make sure that the fire has been put off, because in the past there was some experience when there were fire at reactors at the spent nuclear fuel pool, but then there were times when the fire erupted once again and radioactive substances were emitted. So TEPCO needs to confirm that they surely were able to put off fire. And the hydrogen explosion took place near the spent nuclear fuel pool. Now, this spent nuclear fuel is a fuel that was already used at the reactor. It is already used, but it still emits heat. So you need to cool down the fuel. But usually you place it into a pool with water on it and cool it down. And it takes a minimum of 3 to 4 years to cool down the fuel. But when you cool down this fuel, it's not enough just to put it into a pool. You need to circulate the water inside the pool. However, in this fourth nuclear reactor, due to the earthquake, they lost all the power sources. So the water that were needed to circulate, you need to have power, but we didn't have power. So this is my speculation. It seems that the water evaporated and the spent nuclear fuel was exposed at the top of or over at the water level. Now, this spent nuclear fuel is covered by zirconium, and if it touches air, then it is oxidized and hydrogen emits. And the hydrogen pooled, and that, I believe, led to fire. Now, this is not about the fourth nuclear reactor, but above the third reactor, you are seeing a cloud of steam. Now, I think that this may have been due to the steam that came out from the spent nuclear reactor pool. According to some experts, that is the case. So that may be the case. It was reported that the fire has been extinguished, but that is not enough. We need to cool down the nuclear spent nuclear fuel. So we need to inject water into that pool. We don't have such information as to that kind of work is going on to inject water, but TEPCO, I believe, will be preparing for it. Now, there was concern and that heat is mounting inside the reactor, and that may damage the container vessel. But in addition to that, there is this question of the spent nuclear fuel spool. Yes, it has been some time since this nuclear fuel had been spent, but it still has some heat, and we need to continue to cool down it for 3 or 4 years in the pool, and we need to circulate water. However, because we lost power source to continue circulating the water, we couldn't cool down the pool. So that it may be the case that the top of the spent nuclear fuel may have been exposed. Now, in another issue, in the second reactor, the suppression pool may have been damaged. What is this all about? Now, suppression pool is a cooling system to cool down reactors, and there was an explosion there. Now, the suppression pool is part of the container vessel that contains radioactive substances. And because of that explosion that took place, there could be that the wall of the container vessel may have been damaged. And that means that the function to contain radioactive substances may have been lost. Here we have the picture. The suppression pool is at the bottom, yes, and there's this donut-shaped pool. And so the steam from the reactor is injected here, and with the water, the steam is cooled down, and that's the function. And there was this sound of explosion near that area, and so the suppression pool may be damaged. Now, the suppression pool is a part of the nuclear reactor container. And, of course, we have concrete surrounding it. However, if that is damaged, there is a possibility that water may leak. And this water is not clean. It's contaminated with radioactive substances. So if that is leaked, then that means that the radioactive substances will be emitted to outside. So that may be the reason why the radiation level is high. Now, according to some information, we wouldn't know whether it is liquid or it is air that is being suppressed, that is being emitted. So, but the amount of the radiation is now being confirmed, and the government has issued people living within the radius of 20 to 30 kilometers from the nuclear reactor to remain indoors. That's right. Now, within the 20 kilometers radius, evacuation order has been placed, and most of the people here have completed evacuation. But in addition to that, to the places within 20 to 30 kilometers from the nuclear reactor, it was ordered that they remain indoors. That means that when you're inside, to keep yourself inside the house or workplaces and watch out for the situation. Currently, if you're in a house or in workplaces, people should remain there. But if you are outside, go home or to go inside your workplaces as soon as possible. And in that case, when you're coming inside from outside, it could be that radioactive substances may be attached to your clothing, so you have to brush it off. And even when you go inside, do not ventilate. Please shut your windows and do not let the air in. And do not use air conditioners that will ventilate air. And if you use petroleum stove or gasoline stove, then that may contaminate air. So it might be cold, but do not use oil stove. Now, you cannot actually stay indoors without ventilation for a long time. How long will this last? Well, the fire is said to have been extinguished. We don't know, but if we wait for some time, the radiation level will fall. We don't know, but I think the government will issue some information on this, so we need to take a close watch at the information.
That was NHK senior commentator Noriyuki Mizuno with his analysis on the level of radiation detected and possible health effects, as well as advice there. Staying for more of this information, as well as a live stream on our broadcast on the NHK World website, shown on the upper right side of the screen. And Japan's meteorological agency says the wind at the nuclear reactor in Fukushima is blowing westward. Weather officials say they measured wind with a speed of 11 kilometers per hour at 11:20 a.m. in Iwaki City, 50 kilometers south of